Good deal. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Corcoran. I'm from J&V Restaurant Supply in Bozeman. We supplied all the kitchen equipment, so we're your vendor. First thing I do like to tell people in these trainings, I've been doing this for myself for a couple years now, almost 3 years. I'm sure a lot of you folks know a lot more than I do in certain areas. So I'm going to do my best to train you to my knowledge, but I'm also going to have a notepad. So when you do ask me questions, I'll jot down some notes. I'll get you answers, I promise. I might not know everything today, but I'll do my best. So just let me know and we'll jot them down as we go along. But with that, I do have a couple books here, the O&M manuals, which I'm sure you're all used to seeing. So I got 2 copies today to leave. We did send an electronic copy in through the general contractor as well, so I imagine that'll flow down to some folks at some point as well. But do have a couple copies to kind of help me through today. If questions come up, we can look them up. We can, see what we can do. I'll use them a little bit, but I won't use them throughout the day. Big thing I like to say though too is real quick, my name is on the front of this book. Our phone number's on the front of this book. We do have kind of a special request in here as, we're under warranty for a year. And as warranty requests come up, I guarantee something's going to happen in the next year. Something's going to not work right. We ask that you call us at J&V Restaurant Supply in Bozeman, just because we have a process that we need to follow. We need to call these vendors. We need to initiate a warranty claim, and it creates payment problems, essentially, is what it boils down to. So please call me the best you can. The one caveat I would say to that is that for the refrigeration of the walk-in cooler, and then there's an ice machine downstairs that was a remote refrigeration unit, meaning refrigeration's up on the roof over here. Rick's Refrigeration out of Livingston was our contractor on that, helped us supply that refrigeration and install it. If you call me, like I say, there's an emergency and you can't get a hold of me, the walk-in cooler's down, I need somebody right away. He's out of Livingston. I'm just going to turn around and call him anyway. So if you can't get a hold of me for some reason, please call Rick's. Their number is in here. And
they're our contractors.
Okay, so you're probably familiar with them, yeah. So, you probably call them anyway, but I just like to mention that because a lot of times people they'll be trying to call me, leaving me messages, and if I can't get to it right away, you guys have a problem, then, we want to respond to it as fast as can. So, but with that, it's kind of just a layout of this book. In the very beginning here, we have a kind of a list of, and maybe we can all come around a little later and take a look at this, but I'll just do a general rundown. We have a list of all the items that we supplied for you, model numbers, serial numbers. So when you do have a warranty request, it's always good to have the model number, the serial number. Helps move things along a little faster. So we have service agents in here as well. So as things do come up, you can find up, the manufacturer, and whoever it is, there's a service rep that you'll have to call, down the road. So this is kind of some of the upfront information in this book. But then after that, we really just kind of, we have our warranty statement in here, I guess, specific manufacturer warranties, and then we dive into an itemized book, essentially, where it's by the manufacturer, so you can find your tab. Yeah, you have a question about a certain piece of equipment, find that piece of, that manufacturer, Mammoth, the ice machines, you can just flip to that page, and then you can find the manuals listed in there and try to troubleshoot and work through and ask, find out the questions that you have. So, but that's kind of an overrun of, I guess, these books. And like I said, at any point throughout today, please take a look at them. Let me know if you have any questions on that. So, with that, I guess, that's usually my initial spiel as far as kind of this classroom setting. We can certainly talk about a lot more if you'd like, but honestly, I like to go get in front of the equipment and we just kind of pick on a piece, and we'll walk through the kitchen, walk through the area. I'll do my best to show you how to use it, but bring me questions and we'll talk about it at that time if that works for everybody. So awesome. All right. Well, I hope everybody can hear me, I guess, if it's kind of tight in here, but I'll start with some of the basic things. Obviously, you have a sink over here in the corner. It's really basic. There's not a lot to talk about. There's a knee lever operation. You just, you kick your knee into it, it turns the water on. Biggest thing about that, it's stainless steel, so, keep, clean it the best you can. We'll talk about all stainless clean here in a minute. There's a parts diagram in the manual as things do, leaky valves, leaky seals. It's good for a repair person to have a parts diagram to kind of take a peek and see what you need. So pretty basic there. Moving into these roll-in refrigerators. These, they have roll-in racks in there. Big thing about this to talk about is the programming and the temperature control. These things come factory set. So there's a whole slew of settings that they have that they recommend at the factory. We can adjust those things though if we'd like to. Part of the setup is that you give it a password. And so right now in the manual they ask for a very basic password. And I've set up these two already. And I'll show you, I mean, essentially you hit set to access this. And it brings up COS, stands for customer. Hit set again, and you start to have a flashing screen. So it's a 3-digit. This particular one, the manual, makes it very simple. The first digit is 0. To toggle through, you hit set. The second digit is A. And you can toggle down to that. You hit set.
1.
There you go. 1. So very knowledgeable thing there, but then you hit set. Now you're into this programming. You can set any of the features you want. I've already run through these two and set the times, the dates, all the temperatures are factory set, so we don't have to adjust those, but like I said, we can. There's a whole other slew of bells and whistles that quite honestly, I can't explain them all right now. They're in this book. If you have other desires that you want to tackle, by all means let me know. I'll learn it, we'll talk about it, we'll figure it out together, but it's all here in the book. But you can toggle through all these selections in, and each of the little codes stand for something. The big ones I remember, like clock, CL, day, calendar, and that's about it on these ones here. So like I said, I've left this one kind of ready to go. I didn't touch it yesterday. You'll notice up here right now it's flashing some other digits. So there's alarms that can happen. If you have a problem, you get a code that tells you there's a problem. This one I happened to leave in alarm mode yesterday. You'll see LOS stands for, basically it was loss of power. Because we had breakers turned off when the construction was done and everything was shut off. So it tells you had a loss of power, which we just turned it on yesterday, so there really wasn't an emergency. But if you saw something like that, you'd know to look up in the book, well, what is it? If you leave the door open, somebody just walks away for the day, door's open, it'll tell you that the door's left open. Basically, you can see a little light here, which it's like a speaker symbol, has a light to it. That means you have an alarm. When that's active, this lights up. When you clear the alarm, you want to be done with it, you've taken care of it, just push the button. And it should cycle through. Well, in a perfect world, that would happen. If I was on film, we'd be able to do that right now, but maybe I'll mess with that here in a little bit so we can get through this. But with this one, same deal, I didn't set up the owner code. It sounds like you used the code right out of the book. So we can set up this code as well, and it's usually by hitting set, customer, same deal, 0, A1, set. Now we're in there. Oh, now I see it looks like the alarm's cleared. It's probably because I didn't do that initial setup, so our alarms are now cleared, and we can move on, I suppose. But there really isn't a lot more to talk about on these, other maybe cleaning, maintenance. The compressors are located up on top of it. I think that's going to be the biggest maintenance thing to think about. It's going to collect dust up there. Biggest thing about refrigeration that'll slow it down, cause it to not work for longer, is you get dust accumulating on there, dirt accumulating on there. So it's good to, every season or whatever it is, to take and vacuum that off and try to clean up the best you can. So, any questions on these units? Okay, moving on. I'll just jump into essentially our line here. Obviously stainless steel tables. Underneath we have heat lamps, and they're rather simple. They're underneath, there's a toggle control. 1 through 7, you have a little light that comes on, and then you set your temperature on that. It'll heat up, provide heat, and that's pretty basic there. These are already hardwired in, so there is no plugs on them. The one thing I'm going to point out is somebody here hopefully can help me, is that we're going to have to burn these off a little bit when they're manufactured. They're going to stink. I notice we have a smoke alarm right overhead. I don't want to set off any smoke alarms, so maybe after the training, if somebody can help me out, come up with a good plan for that, we'll get those taken care of.
We'll cover it over.
Okay, yeah, if we can cover it and burn it off and get rid of that smell and be done with that. So I'm going to jump over now to the other side of this refrigeration unit. It's going to be a little tough for everybody to get in here, I imagine, but This under counter or refrigeration Charleston unit. There's a control panel on here, digital. It's essentially the same as I just showed you. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles as the other units there, but you have a set button, you have an alarm button, you have toggles up and down. There again, you just press the set. You got customer, enter in your code, which is the same. Comes manufactured, or I'm sorry, preset from the manufacturer, so temperatures are what they suggest. Can certainly change them though if need be. So there again, cleaning is going to be another one of the big items on this one. There's basically a cover here that just pops out. It has these little, I guess, spring clips, if you will, on the back. There is a master switch under here for on and off. If you close down for a weekend or whatever it might be that you want to turn that off for an extended amount of time, you can do that. The compressor is located down in this compartment. There's a filter in there. There again, it's great to vacuum it out once in a while. At some point you're probably gonna have to maybe buy a new filter, but that'll help, I guess, restore the longevity of your piece here. And that just pops back on. Not much to talk about inside. I mean, there are shelves that are already installed. Pretty basic unit, but we can talk about anything in there if you like. I think now I'll jump on maybe the other side of this table real quick. I'll jump right in front of you here. Excuse me. I guess going into here, there again, another faucet. Nothing much to talk about other than when it starts to leak. There's problems like that. There's parts diagrams. You can kind of break down the parts and see what it is that you need to buy or replace and go from there. I would say now is kind of a good time to talk about the stainless cleaning. I know there's traditionally there's a lot of people. I know I used to work in food service years ago. A lot of people like to use bleach, clean their stainless with bleach, and it seems like a good idea, but it's actually not recommended. We recommend the cleaning, nothing abrasive, no abrasive pads, no scraping. It will scratch it. Stainless can deteriorate over time too. So we recommend trying to keep it clean with just really soap and water and rinse it very well. Rinsing can be key. Depending on the quality of your water here, if it's hard or soft, you may run into some situations with that to deal with as well. So, but really other than that, we kind of get into these heated cabinets, the Crest Core. There again, these are some units that will have to burn off from the smell, so we'll kind of do that at the same time with these units, but very basic. You got a, just lever door here. These units do not have a water feature, so they don't really have that steam element that sometimes you see in these units, so there's no need to add water. Very basic controls at the bottom. There's an on-off switch, has a red light. And I don't believe this unit's plugged in at the moment, but I'll get them plugged in today. Really, there's a 1 to 10 dial. That's how you control your heat. So the manufacturer recommends when you start up this unit at the beginning of your shift, you want to get it warm, crank it up to 10, get the heat cranking through there. There are some in the manual. There's some recommended dials depending on what temperature you're looking to hold at. We can open that up, but if I remember right, it's like 8, 9, and 10, or they range from anywhere from like 180 down to 150, something like that. But we can pop that open, take a look at it. It might be good to look at that the first few times you use it till you get a good feel for your temperatures. Get used to those controls. So other than that, you just, like I said, turn it off. It does have a little dial on here. Pretty basic, there isn't a lot to that. There again, basic cleaning procedures. Keep them good and clean, and it may be good to let them vent out every now and again at the end of your shift, so I don't have any buildup of anything in there. So. I guess water filters, as you notice, a couple up here in the ceiling. I'm sure you all know how often to change them, but 6 months is a good rule of thumb. It kind of depends on your usage and how much you're running through here, I suppose, but that's kind of what we suggest. So, I got a nice machine. Just for the camera's benefit, it might be better to set up over here. I'm going to open this door and block off kind of view, but that's up to you. All right. So So the Manitowoc ice machine. Right now I have some screws that I've already undone so we can get into this thing, but there's 2 screws basically that secure this panel. And the reason we do that is we don't want everybody in here. We just want people that really know what they're doing, want to make the adjustments. But on day-to-day use, this panel is closed. And part of that reason is you'll see some of these buttons are not accessible anymore. It's just once you get it up and running, there's really no need to be messing with buttons. But if you need to make adjustments, you loosen the screws. This panel opens up, gives you access in here now. You'll notice you have a slew of other buttons that you can access. Right now I have this model off. I did cycle it a little bit yesterday. There's a power button right here. You can hear it'll start working. It's already hooked up to the water. The water's turned on. And I suggest, the first one I can leave it on today if anybody has a preference. It's good to burn through, I think, 1 cycle of ice in the very beginning. Let that melt, clean it out again before you actually use any ice out of here. So I can leave it on today if anybody has that suggestion or would like to, or we can do it at a later date.
Has it been sanitized yet?
It has not been, no. So we can take a look at that as well if that's something we need to do, and sanitize, run through it, burn off a cycle of ice. So, but with that, there's a menu button on here. Essentially, this is how you set it up, make any changes, make any adjustments. There again, I recommend using the book. There are some instructions on here, depending on what you're looking to do. Essentially, I've already set it up. I've set the date, I've set the time. Should be good to go. If you ever have a shutdown, you really need to do that again, there's the setup button on here. You can toggle through. The check mark is essentially how you select what feature you want to be talking about. You can change language, time and date, get into all that. Pretty simple. I would say cleaning. Cleaning's another big thing that you'll have to work through. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that already, but there are cleaning and sanitizing procedures on here. And I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for now. It's a little loud, but I guess I personally have never cleaned one, but I've read these instructions. I've talked about it. Essentially, it's recommended every 6 months. There again, depending on your usage and see what you're seeing. Depends what your water quality is. If you have hard water, you might have buildup more often. If you have, there's a potential for slime, type of stuff to grow in here. So we recommend shutting it down, disconnecting the power out of the power box, letting all the ice melt out of here, and then essentially run it through a cleaning cycle. There's a cleaning button here, and it'll run, essentially it fills up the water. You can flush through the system. You can add in sanitizer, cleaner, wipe down all the parts, and clean it back or start it back up again. So it's the basics on that. And all right, I'm ready to go. I hope everybody can hear me in here. So basically the glass cooler here just slides open such as this. There again, temperatures factory preset. There isn't a lot to do to adjust things. This unit here has a couple defrost options. It's factory set to have every 4 hours it'll go into defrost, and there is an option for a 6-hour defrost if you find that you have excessive moisture buildup or frost buildup inside. There's a button down here in the bottom, and essentially you just push it here. We'll kick it into defrost right now, but you push that through. You'll see this light comes on. You hear the condenser stop. That's a 6-hour defrost. The manufacturer, there's a note on here. They recommend doing that 6-hour defrost at the end of your shift or close of business, but it will do it every 4 hours automatically. So if you don't need to do it, you're not seeing that condensation, you don't have to do it. It's going to depend on kind of what you're seeing inside of here. If this door is left open throughout business, you're going to get a lot more buildup in there. But if it's closed all the time, you're not going to get quite as much. So there's much else to this machine other than that. There again, if you can see any dust buildup, you can take off this cover here, vacuum out some of those the condensing units, keep them clean over time. So not much else to this unit. So we'll move on to this one here. Back bar cooler. We'll get all these shelves set up for you here today, but there again, factory set. There's a control panel here on the right hand side, very similar to the ones that we saw upstairs. I can certainly run through it if you'd like, but there's essentially a set button. You can program it however you like. You don't have to, you shouldn't have to at all, because it's factory preset. There again, if you're seeing conditions you don't like, you want a little bit colder, a little bit warmer, we can make those adjustments. Got a milk, I guess milk distributor here. Little switch on the side. You just lift it up there, opens up. There's instructions here for the bag in the box. You'll see we've got a couple here. I assume this would be the method you're going to be using. But essentially, we'll get this plastic off, get these cleaned up. You drop your bag in a box through here. You have the spot here for your tube coming out. This then gets placed inside of here. This little feature folds down. It holds everything in there. There's a spigot here that you feed your tube through. And that's about it for setting it up in here. And then you have your basically on off here. Yeah, depending on what you're filling, which would be a good question today if somebody can help me with. There is a little trough that we can install here if you're going to be primarily installing glasses, or if you're going to have like crafts and things like that, that we might want to leave that off so you can fit everything in there. So for now it's not installed, but we can certainly get it on depending on your needs. So this unit is a manual defrost item. There is no automatic defrost. Manufacturer recommends that once you see about a ½ inch of frost buildup on the inside, you're going to need to shut it down. So you want to take out your product, essentially turn the unit off, unplug it from the power, let it defrost, give it however long until you start to see this frost separate from the inside of it. Once that frost starts to separate, you can essentially wipe it out, wipe it clean, wipe it dry. Once it's dry, you can then plug it back in, fire it back up, and then you're off and running again. So, and I got one other refrigerated unit over here that we'll talk about. Really nothing new on this one. It's the same that we've been talking about, just a different unit. There again, the control panel is set on the side here, digital display, factory preset. There's no need to really adjust anything. But we can run through that if need be. There again, you got the condensing cover on this side here. Recommend cleaning it, every 6 months, something like that. So we get into some of the stainless items here around the side as well. Not a lot to talk about. You have your faucets. There again, parts diagrams would be in the owner's manual. If you do need to order parts down the road, recommend cleaning these as discussed before. Really a lot of soap and water, a lot of rinsing. Try not to use too many abrasive pads. Any sort of bleach is bad for it. Otherwise, the stainless should stay in good condition for a while yet. So, other than that, we really have a sink over here is the only other thing. There again, another faucet. Parts diagrams available. So.
Where's the keys at?
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know that answer right now. Let me look around and see if I can find them or find out where our guys left them, and I can get them to whomever. So.
Because I don't even know
Ricky
how
just
this
lift
works.
here.
Let's see.
You have to do something.
Let's see if we can. Huh. Oh, there we go. There we go. So you just have to.
That has to come out.
Do we have locks on the line?
Yep.
Yeah, essentially a locking for your liquors. So the way I got that out was essentially, it was kind of a trial and error, I guess you could say. You push in the one button, where then you can see where it releases this locking mechanism. And then I had to push down on the other one as it came out just to get a little leverage. So if you push in on your bottom one, and then pull down on the one that pops out on the top, and then that should be free and you can lift that unit straight up. I grabbed it by the holes on the top a little bit. I think if you try, there you go. And just slides right out there.
Takes 4 hands. One person if you have 4 hands.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You good? All right. Walk-in cooler. Not a lot to talk about here, but we'll talk about it a little bit. Obviously, you have your ramp here. Trip hazard. For a lot of folks, something to think about. But also, kind of this diamond tread can get slippery, so it's nice to keep it clean, keep it dry, making sure nobody's getting hurt here. Obviously, pretty basic operation. I've noticed you have a door latch up here that sometimes these pop out. I showed up today, I noticed it was out for some reason. We can make adjustments if need be, which it looks like this is probably going to need it. But if this ever pops out, which is going to happen from time to time, you essentially just pull it out, push it back down in there, and then it catches in there, rolls up into the door. That way you make sure you got a nice tight seal on your door. We'll make any adjustments today that need be, but in the future, if you see that, let us know. We can take care of it. So, walk-in cooler is running right now. I'm happy to leave it running, but there again, I'll probably shut it down before we leave today. But diamond tread, surfaces get slippery there again, and we recommend mopping it out, cleaning it out, keeping your surfaces clean. You have your keg storage racks in here. These can be adjusted if need be. They have little set screws right here. We've set them up where we think they ought to be right now, but if you don't like them, you want them to be moved some other height, we can adjust them for you. There will be another unit in here, and once we're done in here, we can get this unit back in, but there's a unit, maybe it's that one there. One of these other shelves goes in the back unit there, so you will have essentially shelving all around 3 sides. We'll talk about the beer system here in a little bit, but other things to think about is walk-in cooler. You got evaporators, you got fans running. You notice up on top. There is a fins essentially on the back of the unit, of the very back here, which is going to be hard to get in a shot, but I'm sure some of you have seen them. There's the sharp fins on the back that will build up if you have refrigeration issues. You may see frost building up on them, and that's going to indicate a problem. If you happen to see that, let us know. Sometimes that can be like a defrost issue. Maybe there's some settings that we'll have to adjust. Maybe it's a temperature issue. Maybe it's that the door isn't getting closed all the way. So things to be looking for as you come in and inspect your cooler, just make sure those fans and those evaps and those coils are clean and you're not seeing any frost build up anywhere. Off of lights, sometimes you'll see it, which is more so in freezers, so you really won't see much in this one, but if you do happen to notice anything, let us know. But otherwise, we suggest wiping this down clean every so often. As you see, dirt build up, fluids build up. Just keep it really clean with soap and water. This is your drain line. Essentially, there's a condensation line that drains through here. Copper line comes out, runs along the wall, drops down the side, and comes out on the other side here, which is probably hard for everybody to see. But that floor sink, it'll drain into there. There again, keep it clean. Notice that it should be draining on a regular basis. If you don't think it's draining, sometimes those can get clogged up or backed up. It might indicate a problem, but really with a cooler, you shouldn't see any issues. So just things to kind of keep an eye out for, though. I'm going to step.
Is there a light in there?
There is a light in there. I'll check with the electrician. I'm guessing maybe it's just a breaker or something like that isn't flipped right now, but we'll make sure lights are operational, control panel operational. Which kind of leads me into my next subject. I'll go ahead and close this down. I think this is which is essentially located up above those 2 boxes you see up there. It's a control system essentially based on computer. I understand probably a lot of you have heard about them. You have them probably everywhere else here, so it's nothing new. But right now there's no data port in here. There's no connection, I guess, to your network. And so
the data's up there.
Well, there's the data. Is it? To my understanding, there wasn't data taken anywhere else, but there's.
They ran data.
That's wire. The blue one? Okay. Let me look into that. I've been in contact with like Don Clark, and then Michael Miles yesterday was going to look into it as well. He didn't think it was connected, but once we have
I think it's connected yet, but it's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we probably just didn't understand the intent on that, but we'll make sure to get it taken care of. I think once we get to that part of it, it warrants basically another training session with the interested folks. Essentially, this is a computer system where you can monitor, you can control the walk-in. It's computer-based.
Glycol system, which is used to keep the beer cold as it's running through all the lines from the walk-in to the tap system. And essentially what it is, it's just a reservoir of food-grade glycol in here, essentially antifreeze. So it's got this reservoir. You kick your condensing unit on and kick your motor on here. Control your temperatures off of these controls right here, which are pretty easy to control. I mean, it's the same setup as every other Xanterra property, really. So what it's doing is it's pumping that glycol through, keeping the beer cold in the lines, picking up the heat off the beer, bringing it back here. There's a refrigeration unit in here that's cooling it back down. and it's just circulating. It's essentially just like a radiator. So you kick these two guys on, set your temperature where you want it, and it's just sensing the temperature as it's coming back through and saying, okay, I gotta cool down, I gotta let it chill out, I gotta cool down, let it chill out. So it's all just running through here. So these two lines come, tie into the beer lines, and are on a continuous loop, just running through it all. And then through time, you will lose some of this glycol to evaporation and stuff like that. So I imagine every winter when you shut down, or spring, if you shut down this one at all, you'll pump all that out of there so it's not sitting there getting stagnant. You know, light, humidity, all that stuff will degrade that glycol a little bit. So from there it goes into the walk-in. And all these are set up the same. So you just tap onto your keg with this guy, just like any kegger you had in college, where you tap into it with this guy. And the beauty of this system is when the keg is empty, it shuts it off. So we're not bleeding air and everything through the lines, it shuts it off. So when you tap into the next keg, you're not having to spend all that time and all that money and beer going down the drain by burning off all that foam. So when you tap the next keg, you shut it off, and you turn this valve to bleed it through off all these valves right here. There's valve to bleed it through until you see you got beer coming back through. Kick it back on, and you're good. You'll have minimal amount of foam burn off when you go to pour your next beer at that keg. And then at the end of the year, you know, Mark's got that system set up where he runs hot water through it to clean the lines and does all that stuff. But, I mean, it's really the same setup as we got on in the other one. You know, once we got CO2 and a way to pump the beer, it'll tie into these guys, and that's what we're using to pump that beer. So really pretty easy. We'll make up a little placard and laminate a placard for you so that anybody that comes back here to change the keg can follow the steps through and making it go real easy like that. So that's really the system. Any questions? Jeff?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, it's the same system as every other Xanterra product. All right. So the beer system is essentially 6 beer taps, 2 reds, 2 whites. They're just like any other tap. Pull it forward to pour beer, push it back to stop pouring beer. One of the biggest things you got is when you see your bartender grabbing your handle up high, that's when you're gonna start twisting your shafts and getting, so I mean, they're easy to do just with the pull of the finger, and I think it looks presents a lot better to the customer when you come up and you're just right here instead of doing that. But it's just pour your beer, stop pouring your beer, tip your glass at 45 degrees this way, not that way. And then as far as the dismantling goes, pull this ring nut off here. You can pull out here, and you can get inside to that ball valve, and then we'll get you the nut or the wrench to pull apart here and clean them out. And you know, we'll just run hot water through there, clean them out, wipe it down, throw some food grade grease in there, slide it back in, tighten everything down, and bing, bang, boom, you're pouring beer again. How often do you guys clean your taps?
I do it try to do it every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Yeah, so they're nice and clean then. They're, you know, as long as we're greasing them up, then we shouldn't have a problem at all. You know, the biggest problem is going to be dropping a spring or losing a O-ring or something like that. So, but as far as the taps go, I mean, they're so, especially if we clean them that much, they're not going to grime up. That it's just a finger pull and a thumb push back. And then nightly, make sure they're pouring hot water down to burn these troughs down. And, you know, and then it's just wiping them down, making them look pretty and nice. That's a nice system. Then I imagine
I can't figure that out. Oh,
I don't know where our floor drain's going to. Must be going into the back room.
I thought there was a floor sink on the floor, right?
Oh, it is right down below it here is the floor sink. So you're gonna want to check that every once in a while, make sure that's not backed up. If that gets backed up, then all that nasty stink beer is gonna start flowing out. So that's a tough spot for that floor sink, but it's just ran, you know, there's a drain coming down out of the wine, drain coming down out of the beer, coming down and dropping right down in there. So that would be the main thing you got to keep an eye on, is just making sure we're burning hot water down here every night, so it's not sitting and getting thick and starting to bring on the fruit flies and all that stuff. So just running hot water, maybe a couple of pitchers down each one of them, wiping them down, keeping them clean, and they'll last forever. But that's pretty much the beer system in a nutshell. And the wine system, I guess. Any questions? Once we get beer hooked up and the wine hooked up, then we'll start dialing in that pressure. And once we get pressure, then we'll start dialing it in and making sure we're not pushing too hard or anything like that.
Be able to come back in December when we're dialing it up. We won't have product here until November or December.
Yeah, that's no problem. We can come back and help dial it up with whoever your CO2 guy is, or yeah.
I have all the trust in him, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I take care of Canyon by myself because that guy didn't know nothing about a beer system.
Right. Yeah. So who do you use for AWG? American Welding Gas, or yeah.
Until we get our CO2 and nitrogen from.
Yeah. So Doug, I suppose. You know, we'll get it lined up with Doug, and we'll just come in at the same time, and we'll just dial it all in.